Ohio State loses the fourth straight the game occasion to the Michigan Wolverines, except this is the absolute worst one on Ryan Day in Ohio State. And it's without question, at least in this 4-game streak, because the last 3 years, Michigan was a top 3, top 5, top 10 team in the country. Now, I don't care that Michigan came in at number 10 to start the season. They were getting respect from being the national champs last year and a little bit of talent that they have on their roster. We know they have a top corner. We know they have a top quarterback. But Michigan is bad right now. Horrendous. But they played the game on their terms with a walk-on quarterback running the football down Ohio State's throat with 2 of their top players out, with Ohio State being a top team playing the game in Columbus. I mean, need I say more for the historic meltdown of Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes? And I'm not here to jump on the hype train or really rally this all together, but I'm not going to say that Ryan Day's job should be safe. I'm not. And it's not because of the fact that he has 2 losses, because one of them was to the number 1 team in the country by 1 point. The point is, Michigan was very inferior. You have a $20 million NIL roster, the most expensive NIL roster in the country, and you still can't win the game. I want to address the fighting up front first and foremost about both teams. I'll keep it short and sweet. I did think it was a pretty classless act by both teams, and this is coming from a guy that bleeds red and black in college football for the Dogs. I bleed black and gold in the NFL for the New Orleans Saints. And some people even think that I condone dirty playing because of Bountygate with the Saints, but that's not the case with me. I don't like seeing dirty hits. I don't like seeing fights like this. Flags should not be planted. It's just an absolutely played out concept. It's not original anymore. I mean, you have Baker Mayfield in the NFL getting asked by broadcasters, by reporters about it, and he's just, nodding his head, dropping his head, kind of shaking his head, literally saying, geez, like, okay, here we go. We're still hanging on to this type of thing. But, Ohio State shouldn't have came out swinging for the fences like it's a boxing match. Of course, Michigan shouldn't have tried to go and plant the flag like they did. But, hey, it's the game. It's an insane game that's played every year. It's like the Iron Bowl. It's like Texas A&M when it's warranted. It's like literally Ohio State and Michigan, like this game was. So I get it. It's rivalry week with so much on the line. But you have to hold your composure. I mean, pepper spray getting involved in a post-game college football player fight. Let's be real. I want to give a shout out to the gentlemen who were caught on camera, the 4 of them just kneeling, praying. Love seeing the presence of the Lord in situations like that, because really that's, where people need to turn to kind of, be able to regain their composure. And I even agree with the Michigan player who not only said it was classless, which I agree with, but you have to learn how to lose. It's on you for losing. You got shut out in the second half. You allowed a season-high 172 rushing yards. You had a season-low 252 yards of offense. You had a season-low 10 points. You got shut out for the first time in the second half this year. All the first for Ohio State in this game happened for them. Michigan was able to pull it off. And again, it's the worst loss for Ohio State under Ryan Day to Michigan in recent memory. You got a walk-on quarterback in Warren Davis. It's an unranked Michigan team. There was even a little bit of a quarterback dilemma earlier in the year. You were favored by 3 touchdowns. You're at home. And you come out, you let Michigan play the game on their terms in the trenches with the run game, as they have for years now. Like, was it really any question how Michigan was going to come out and play this game? No. You knew that they were not going to ask a lot of their quarterback. They were going to play great defense, which they did, and they were going to run the hell out of the football, which they did, to the tune of a 13-10 win and then upset of the number 2 Ohio State Buckeyes in Columbus for 2024. I mean, they really just started wearing down Ohio State's defense late early second quarter, drives with the run game. Credit Ohio State for slamming the door on 4th and 1, but that doesn't really do any favors for Will Howard turning around, throwing an awful interception right after that as well. And it kind of felt like in the Penn State game when he threw the pick 6, but then he controlled himself. He rebounded. They won the game. Now, Penn State really, kind of mailed that one in for Ohio State. But Michigan took control and was playing their level of football, and they scored a rushing touchdown very easily in this one. right after that interception from Will Howard. The patchwork O line for the Buckeyes, it showed its ugly head in this one. It was praised weeks ago, and now we see that it is something that was really their demise in this game. Makari Page blowing up Will Howard on the third down scramble in the second quarter was another example of just Michigan stamping their brand all over this football game. Missing the 38-yarder in the second quarter with 7 minutes to go is going to haunt Ohio State for probably the rest of the year, along with a 34-yard miss late in the third quarter as well. I thought Ohio State did have a great drive to score the touchdown at the end of the second half. They needed that to stay alive, albeit they had no points in the second half. They were shut out in the second half again for the first time of the season. And you know, watching this game, you kind of thought Ohio State adjusted coming out of the second half. I mean, they converted multiple third downs on the opening drive of the second half. They held the ball for, I think, what was almost 11 minutes, if I'm recalling that correctly, just for Will Howard to throw another bad interception. But there's no worries there as Davis Warren turns around. It gives it right back on what should have been a touchdown pass to put Michigan up even more in this football game. It was kind of a boring game to watch. It was pretty much a snooze fest for what's supposed to be one of the best games of the year. Maybe not a snooze fest so much for Michigan fans or if you're a real fan of the sport, because you knew the type of upset that it was going to actually provide for the committee as they come out with the rankings as well. But I thought, both quarterbacks had fairly poor quarterback play in this one, both throwing two very bad, very poor decision interceptions. But call me crazy. I feel like Davis Warren seemed to be able to make plays just a little more often than Will Howard did when he needed to. Ohio State's defense wasn't able to make enough plays. They weren't able to get enough stops. And with Michigan pounding the football on the ground all day long, again, 172 rushing yards given up by Ohio State most of the year. You guys remember when Ohio State struggled again with Nebraska, they had that glaring issue. They had 77 yards rushing in this game as well, but except it came back to bite them in the ass and they lost. And Michigan took note of that after Ohio State played Nebraska, was not able to run the football at all, even though they didn't run the football at all, even though they were running it fairly well, which is a very confusing point, kind of like Miami did this weekend against Syracuse. And Michigan saw that. They took note. They replicated it, but to the tune of a win. I thought Will Howard was pretty bad on the final drive of the game as well. Michigan's defense was really just dialing it up and getting after him, so there was no real big takeaways there for Will Howard. I thought he had all of his throws on the last drive were really inaccurate outside of one, I think, completion. So here you have this game finishing out. I mean, it's 10-10 halfway through the fourth quarter when it could be 17-16 Michigan, all things considered, with the two missed kicks from Ohio State and the fact that Davis Warren threw an ugly interception. I think it was Jack Sawyer when uh, Gus Johnson just absolutely goes crazy over the interception. But y'all get in the chat, get in the comments. Let me know what you think about Ohio State losing the fourth straight to Michigan. Should Ryan Day's job be in jeopardy? I slightly think so, because this was just an inexcusable loss, again, at home, favored by 21 points. You have the most expensive NIL roster. You are the clearly superior team. There's no excuses. It wasn't a Jim Harbaugh issue. It's a Michigan Wolverine issue. And you lost to this same team, but more importantly, the same coach who was subbing in last year in Sharon Moore when Jim Harbaugh was serving the suspension. You lost to this team, and you come out and you lose to them again. So it's like, if not now, then when for Ryan Day? Will Ohio State be able to get it done? Because now you look up and they've got two losses, like a Georgia, like a Miami, like these other big-time two-loss teams that are in the 12-team bid in the college football playoff bracket. But I want to know what y'all think. Get down in the comments and sound off as Michigan upsets Ohio State for the fourth straight win in the game in college football.